The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, will you please call the roll?
Senators Bridges, Cook, Corum, Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Binberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Hill, Heisey, Holbert, Lee, Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Pedersen,
Excused.
Briola, Briola, Briola.
Looks like he's absent to me.
Absent.
Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg,
Excused.
Story, Tate, Todd, Williams, Winter, Woodward, Zinzinger, Mr. President.
Here. With 32 present, 1 absent, and 2 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Janal, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members and guests, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members, this morning we are pleased to have the CSU Basic A Capella Choir, led by Denise Apodaca, here to offer us a musical interlude.
All the fronts back,
CSU, thank you for that interlude. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's Founders Day, so happy birthday, Colorado State University, and thank you to the choir, the Basic Choir, B-A-S-S, get it, I-C, choir, and we really appreciate the music that you brought to this body today. CSU is celebrating 150 years of education, research, service, and much more to the people of Colorado. And what I'd like to do before I read this tribute for the 150th year for CSU's birthday is invite my colleagues, CSU colleagues here, my legislators, to come down and stand with Senator Woodward and myself for this tribute. CSU? Okay, well, thank you. There we go. All right.
Kids are alumni. I'm not one.
It's okay. So, this tribute is the Senate and the House of Representatives convened on the 72nd General Assembly hereby extend sincere commendations to Colorado State University on the occasion of its 150th birthday and 2020 Founders Day. In 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Morrill Act to create a uniquely American model of higher education, the land-grant university dedicated to promoting the liberal and practical education of the industrial classes. Colorado Territorial Governor Edward McCook created the Agricultural College of Colorado, which later became Colorado State University in Fort Collins, our state's only land-grant university. In the ensuing 150 years, CSU's flagship campus has become one of the nation's leading public research universities. And today, the three campuses of CSU systems educates nearly 60,000 students every year. CSU Fort Collins is both an academic and economic powerhouse, generating more than $465 million in annual economic activity, multiplying the state's investment several times over. CSU Pueblo has been creating opportunities since 1933 as a regional comprehensive university with a special mission as a federally dedicated Hispanic-serving institution, and is now striding forward with this bold vision 2028. CSU Global is the nation's first fully accredited, fully online state university with a mission to advance student success, invest in human capital, expand the state's economy, and improve the lives of Colorado citizens. CSU has an active home in every Colorado county through Extension, 4-H, the Forest Service, the Agricultural Experiment Stations, regional hub campuses, and the new Spur campus at the National Western Center, which will break ground this year.
Continue, Senator Janal.
It is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished guests today, who are sitting over on this side, and I wish for them to stand. They are CSU System Chancellor Tony Frank, CSU Global President Becky Takeda Tinker, and Executive Vice Chancellor Amy Parsons. And we are also joined by Governor Polis's two nominees for the Board of Governors of the Colorado State System, Dr. Nate Easley and the Honorable and former Senator Polly Baca, both of whom will be up for confirmation this week. We look forward to considering their nominations. And let's give them all a round of applause. And I just also want to mention, colleagues, that you have gift bags from CSU that are on your desks. They reflect its strong commitment to sustainability, to technological innovation, to community, and to agriculture. You may notice that one of the items in your bag is edible. It's a beef snack, beef stick. They are actually prepared and packaged by the students in the Agricultural Sciences Department at CSU, who run an educational program called Ram Country Meats that prepares them with professional experience in all aspects of food production and marketing. They sell their products to regular customers, and I'm supposed to say this, but like Tony Frank and some of those other folks sitting there, and many other folks, but all the proceeds go back to their academic program. So we hope you all enjoy the treats from CSU, and again, happy birthday to our state's great land-grant university, Colorado State University. Thank you.
Senator Janal, you artfully introduced several of our guests. However, you are not in compliance with the rules, so you'll be fined $2. Senator Fields.
That's just fine. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues. I'll try not to make the same mistake in introducing my good friends from Colorado State University. First of all, I want to say I'm glad that I am a parent of a CSU Ram. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. I have a daughter that graduated from CSU with a double major in microbiology and biology. My son was a graduate from CSU. He majored in speech communication and rhetoric. And then my granddaughter is a freshman at Colorado State University. So it is with great honor and pride that I also acknowledge the birthday of Colorado State University for 150 years. And the reason I say that with such pride is because when you send your child, your loved one, off to college, it's because you trust that institution. And what I know about CSU is they really care about the retention of its students. They cared about my son, they cared about my daughter, and now they're caring about my granddaughter. And I know that she would succeed because we have a legacy, a generation now of CSU grads. So I'm just here to say thank you for all you do for student success at Colorado State University. Welcome.
The Senate will stand in a brief recess to welcome our guests. Approval of the journal. Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Monday, February 10th, 2020 be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 162, correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 64, 87, 102, and 114, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 152, correctly revised, House Bill 1021 and 1056.
Mr. Carpenter, please add Senator Priola to the roll call. Committee reports.
February 10, 2020, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1132 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 10, 2020. Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 84 be postponed indefinitely. February 10, 2020. The Committee on Business, Labor, Technology has had in consideration and had a hearing on the following appointments. Organizations appoints to be placed on the consent calendar confirmed. Member of the Pinnacle Assurance Board of Directors effective January 1st, 2020 for a term expiring January 1st, 2025. Mark David Goodman of Denver, Colorado, an employee whose liability is insured by Pinnacle Assurance, reappointed February 10, 2020. Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 78. Be minutes as follows. I assume to be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 10, 2020. Committee on Business, Labor, Technology, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 68. Be minutes as follows. I assume to be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 10, 2020. Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 55. Be referred favorably to Committee on Appropriations February 10, 2020. Committee on Judiciary, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 136. Be minutes as follows. I assume to be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 10, 2020, Committee on Judiciary, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 85, be minutes as follows. Also, be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 10, 2020, Committee on Judiciary, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 88, be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1242, be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1243, be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1244, be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1245, referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1246, referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1247, be referred to the committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1248, be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1249 be referred to the committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1250 be referred to the committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1251 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1252 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1253 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1254 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1255 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1256 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1257 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1258 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 4th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1259 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1260 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. House Bill 1261 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 6 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar February 11, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service and Marriage Committee as following. Senate Bill 56 be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation.
Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read the titles to all the bills listed on the consent calendar.
House Bill 1056 by Representatives Duran and Landgraf, Senators Crowder and Janal concerning the non-substantive reorganization of the Dental Practice Act. House Bill 1021 by Representatives McKean and Monteo and Senators Todd and Quorum concerning the addition of representatives from Native American tribes with reservations in Colorado to the Colorado Youth Advisory Council. Senate Bill 102 by Senators General and Cook and Representative Carvo concerning required disclosures to patients regarding formal actions based on sexual misconduct. Senate Bill 114 by Senator Gardner and Representative Tipper concerning the Uniform Registration of Canadian Money Judgments Act.
People are about to get in trouble. People are about to be in trouble.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the passage of all the bills in the third reading of bills consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1056, House Bill 1021, Senate Bill 102, and Senate Bill 114.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of all the bills listed on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Bill 1056 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Tate, Gardner, Woodward, Bridges, Heisey, Smallwood, Todd, Cook. Story, Fields, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Bill 1021 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Donovan, Crowder, Gonzalez, Cook, Bridges, Rodriguez, Moreno, Heisey, Priola, Janal, Woodward, Zenzinger, Lee, Story, Smallwood, Rankin, Lundeen, Hanson, Winter, Majority Leader, Foote, Gardner, Tate, Marble, Williams, Scott. Please add the President. Please add Senator Fields. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Bill 102 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Winter, Gardner, Hanson, Lundeen, Woodward, Gonzalez, Todd, Tate, Bridges, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 114 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Cook, Lee, Tate, Scott, Janal, Zenzinger, third reading of bills, final passage. Ms. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 093.
Senate Bill 93 by Senators Foote and Pembroke and Representative Jackson concerning protections related to mandatory agreement provisions in connection therewith enacting the Consumer and Employee Dispute Resolution Fairness Act.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 93 lay over until tomorrow, February 12th, 2020.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 093 will be laid over until 2/12/2020, retaining its place on the calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 87.
Senate Bill 87 by Senator Todd and Representative Malco concerning requiring central service technicians to possess professional credentials.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues, and I move Senate Bill 87 on third and final reading and ask for your vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of Senate Bill 087 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Senators Hill, Cook, Gardner, Smallwood, Tate, Woodward, Heisey, Lundeen. Minority Leader. Marble. With 23 ayes, 10 no votes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Bill 087 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Janal, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 064.
Senate Bill 64 by Senator Foot and Representative Soper and Tipper concerning the repeal of a prohibition on the State Attorney General bringing an action under state antitrust law when certain corporate actions have been reviewed by a federal entity.
Senator Foot.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 64 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the bill sponsor as well as the Attorney General's office for stakeholdering and negotiating with the Justice League, more specifically the Colorado Civil Justice League. And I appreciate what that work can do, and so I'll be supporting the bill based on all the stakeholdering and compromise. Thank you.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it's been said on the military side that the generals are always fighting the last war. And when we look at politics and our public policy, we find that we're often legislating the last problem. One of the problems, I think it's fascinating that we're discussing this today when the headlines in the news today is approval of the Sprint and T-Mobile merger. And certainly our current restriction did not restrict our Attorney General from getting involved in that at all in terms of extracting promise from Dish Network to put a new 2,000 employee Dish Wireless headquarters here. So I still not sure what we're trying to accomplish by this. But if we're trying to accomplish the idea that the state's largest law firm is what has the Attorney General's office has been described multiple times on both sides of the aisle as, if the idea is that we're going to empower the state's largest law firm from solving the technical challenges of life in our modern age when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, we're totally kidding ourselves. We could make it more difficult. We could make more paperwork. We could require our big corporations to have to hire more lawyers. If that's the goal, if the goal is just the lawyer employment bill, absolutely, I think we're doing a great job with this prohibition. But the reality is, for those of us who are willing to be honest about our economic history, we recognize that businesses come and go regardless of what we do here. And if you'll think back to the dominance of IBM in the 1980s and the 1990s, there was much discussion of trust busting. There was much discussion of the power that Big Blue wielded. And yet today, they are less than a fraction of a percentage of the S&P 500, when they used to be close to 7% of the S&P 500. If we want to move forward a little bit on that front, we could talk about AOL Time Warner. AOL Time Warner in 1999 had a $230 billion market cap. Today, if someone were to hand you their business card and their email address said owenhill@aol.com, you would laugh when you read that business card. The reality is, these things come and go. The last known valuation, I think Verizon bought AOL for $4.4 billion, which makes me think they paid $4.7 billion too much for it. These things come and go. They come and go in a matter of years. If we want to move forward, we could talk about BlackBerry. When 5 years before BlackBerry stopped producing phones, they had a 50% market share of smartphones. Talk about a crash in value. So we have an economy where these companies, they come, they make an impact, they innovate, and then they are broken up and they are gone. And those are the market forces that happen here. And we've got a case, we're making a case that somehow we need the state's largest law firm to solve the problem of technical dominance, of consumer protection is the word. Well, what consumer protection are we talking about? Are we talking about the consumer protection in the car industry, where not too many years ago, no one had ever heard of Tesla, and now it is the largest by market cap automaker in the world? Happy to discuss economic history with you up here, Senator, if you'd like to come. The thirds is tough for that. The reality is, I mean, if you're concerned about market share, we should be talking about trust busting on Tesla. I don't think any one of us supports that idea. The theory that we have that's underpinning this bill is the theory that somehow without the state's lawyer getting involved in matters of national and international economic concern, Colorado won't have a voice. Recent history has not played that out. This bill is legislating the economies of yesteryear. Rather than looking forward, this bill looks backwards. Rather than looking to innovation and rather than looking to opportunity, this bill says, let's empower lawyers to continue to focus on the background, on history and what is past. I think it's an unwise move for us. I think it is a move that further puts government in the place of a bunch of well-meaning individuals trying to make the world a better place. And I have a feeling at some point in the future, we'll look back on this and say, it was a mistake. It was a mistake, and we have not better served our consumers. We have not better served our constituents by passing this bill. I respectfully ask for a no vote.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I can hardly add to the arguments and comments presented by my colleague from Colorado Springs. Imagine if Barnes & Noble and Borders had tried to merge, what the hue and cry would have been, and yet we see that their competitor really was Amazon. Imagine if Blockbuster and Hollywood Video tried to merge to save themselves, the hue and cry, but their competition was Netflix. Imagine if Netflix tried to control the market. Oh, wait a minute. For a brief moment in time, they did. And now, I don't even know how many services you'd have to have everything. And it turns out that it's probably a bigger problem for me as a consumer that it all fragmented, because now everybody wants $6.99 or $7.99 or $10.99, and I was getting it for, I wasn't happy about it, and they were losing subscribers if they went too high, but at least it was all between them and Amazon Prime Video. The point that my colleague from Colorado Springs I think helps me make is, this whole antitrust law business is about trying to harness the market or control the market. You can't do that. You can distort it. You can delay it. You can benefit some at the expense of others, but at the end of the day, the market will force its way to better pricing. People will quit buying things. They'll not be there in that niche. And if there were only one cell phone company tomorrow, they would, it's not because they're any different than any other large corporate entity. They would take advantage of their position, but they do so much that someone somewhere would start providing consumers an alternative so quickly you wouldn't even imagine it. As was noted, the Sprint T-Mobile merger lawsuit by 13 or so state attorneys general was, there was a ruling yesterday, and all of them lost after 2 years of battle. I wish I'd have gone out and bought Sprint and T-Mobile stock a couple of days ago. If I'd have seen that coming, maybe I would have. That's probably primarily who benefited by all of that market distortion. This is not something that we need more litigation on. Again, my colleague from Colorado Springs had the most compelling comment yesterday when he said, how many of you think that more lawyers involved is a good thing? I actually was probably the only one in the room that thought, well, maybe that is a good thing for me, but not for my constituents, and not for me as a representative of those constituents. I urge a no vote.
Senator Foote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to respond very briefly to my first colleague from Colorado Springs who mentioned AOL. Actually, the provision that this bill would take out was put into our law right around the time AOL was a good company and a viable company. It's not been around for a long time, and it's certainly outlived its usefulness, and so has this provision. I want everyone, before making their final vote on this bill, to think about one thing and one question. And the question is, should the Attorney General of the state of New Mexico be able to protect the residents of New Mexico better than the Attorney General of the state of Colorado can protect Coloradans? What about Arizona? What about Kansas? What about Nebraska? What about Utah? What about Montana? What about Wyoming? What about 49 states in this country that do not have a similar provision that we do in our law? Colorado is the only state that has this prohibition in our law for the Attorney General to be able to intervene in antitrust, merger, and acquisition matters. Every other state in the union has found it fit to not have this provision in this limitation, and I hope Colorado will go along the same line as well. Please vote yes.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just to wrap up on that, I think we have here a wonderful demonstration of the problem of government power and the hubris that we have in this matter. Because I agree completely. I think there are 49 other states that are doing it completely wrong. And rather than us turning around and saying, you know what, Kansas and Nebraska and New Mexico, if there's an M&A that's going to happen with a Colorado company, you guys can stay the hell out of our business, that would be a bill I could support. But instead, we're trying to say, hey, they all have this power to distort the market. Let's make sure we add our own Attorney General to the list. I think this is the opposite of the direction we want to go in the long run. I think it has the fundamental assumption that they understand what consumer protection is up there. No, the reality is this is the definition of insider trading. This is the definition of what it means for one group of folks to go in and be able to affect and influence a market. This is, if you've tracked the Dish Network discussion, look, regardless of whatever you think about that, there was a group of lawyers that had access to information that is going to shape the future of one of our largest companies here in Colorado that none of the rest of us had insight into. If you wanted to get insight into that discussion, into how that discussion was going by your public officials, by the way, if you wanted access to that, you couldn't have got it. It was outside of CORA. This is Attorney General's legal action and discussions. These were private negotiations about the future of one of our biggest businesses. And so as you watch that, if you think that's what consumer protection looks like, if you think consumer protection looks like a private negotiation between the Attorney General and a Colorado billionaire for where the future of a headquarters goes, colleagues, you've got to question your view of what consumer protection is. This is insider trading. This is using government power to pull out some kind of economic value. We could argue maybe it's for Coloradans' benefits, but the reality is this is power and big business conjoined in a way that distorts the market. And if we think that's a good thing in 49 other states, great. I follow the argument that it would be a good thing here in Colorado. The reality, it's a bad thing in 49 other states, and we should take the lead not just in saying that we're not going to do it here in Colorado, but push back against all those other meddlers that would get involved in Colorado's business as well. I still ask for no vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 064 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Marble, Cook, Heisey, Lundin, Quorum, Crowder, Priola, Smallwood, Hill, Rankin, Woodward, Gardner, Scott. With 19 ayes, 14 no votes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Bill 064 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Moreno, Lee, Majority Leader, Rodriguez, Bridges, Gonzalez, Hanson, Tate, Janal. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for immediate reconsideration on Senate Bill 87.
The motion is for the immediate reconsideration of the vote on Senate Bill 87. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will reconsider Senate Bill 087. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 087.
Senate Bill 87 by Senator Todd and Representative Malka concerning requiring Central Service technicians to possess professional credentials.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 87 on third and final reading.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of Senate Bill 087 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Hill, Cook, Lundin, Heisey, Gardner, Woodward, Rankin, Smallwood, Tate, Scott. With 22 aye votes, 11 no votes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Bill 087 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senator Janal. General orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. President. President, I move the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of General Orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of General Orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Hanson will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills on the general order's second reading of bills consent calendar?
Senate Bill 124 by Senator Priol and Hanson, Representative Will and Bunteo, concerning adding to the public school facility construction guidelines a requirement to consult with the local electric utility. Senate Bill 14 by Senator Fields and Representative Michelson Janae, concerning excused absences in public schools resulting from behavioral health concerns. Senate Bill 81 by Senators Danielson, Bridges, Representative Sullivan, and Larson, concerning including school information in the Colorado State Apprenticeship Resource Directory. Senate Bill 123 by Senators Fields and Bridges and Representatives Coleman and Harrod, concerning the rights of college athletes and in connection with establishing their right to receive compensation for the use of their names, images, and likenesses, and their right to obtain professional and legal representation.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 124, along with the Transportation and Energy Committee report, Senate Bill 14, Senate Bill 81, and Senate Bill 123, along with the Education Committee report.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports on the general order's second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. The bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave reports out of consideration the following tax bills being second read. Makes the following recommendation on Senate Bill 124 as amended, Senate Bill 14, Senate Bill 81, Senate Bill 123 as amended, passed second read order, gross place counter for the reading of final passage.
Senator Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 124 as amended, Senate Bill 014, Senate Bill 081, Senate Bill 123 as amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Second reading of bills. Senator Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the consideration of general order's second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of general order's second reading of bills, and Senator Hanson will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 20008?
Senate Bill 8 by Senators Winter and Foote, Representatives Jackson and Hooten.
Senator Winter.
For criminal violations of water quality laws.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 8 and the passage of the Agricultural Committee report.
To the committee reports, Senator Winter.
The committee report made some amendments that ensured we were not erroneously proactively going out and looking for violations, but only when there was proof that we were doing so, and I encourage a yes vote.
Any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. Senator Winter, to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a bill that brings our regulation into accordance with federal law and gives our Attorney General the ability to prosecute water polluters, and I encourage a yes vote.
Senator Foote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also encourage a yes vote. It really just comes down to if you're going to have a law in place, there needs to be effective enforcement. And this bill will make sure that the laws that are in place are more effectively enforced and make sure that we have the ability to continue to drink clean water. So we ask for an aye vote.
All right, any further discussion on Senate Bill 008? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 8. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. Senate Bill 8 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee holds legal report is setting serious and the following test bills being seconded. The makes the following recommendations are on Senate Bill 8 as amended past second order gross place the calendar for the reading and final passage.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 008 passed, Senate Bill 008 as amended passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Consideration of resolutions. Will the clerk please read the title to HJR 1003?
House Joint Resolution 1003 by Representative Geithner and Senator Lundin concerning the designation of United States Highway 24 from the intersection of Garrett Road to the intersection of Elbert Road in Falcon, Colorado as the Sergeant Major James Gregory Ryan Sarter Memorial Highway.
Let's take it away.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move House Joint Resolution 1003 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Carpenter, will you please read HJR 1003 at length?
House Joint Resolution 1003 by Representative Geithner and Senator Lundin concerning the designation of United States Highway 24 from the intersection of Garrett Road to the intersection of Elbert Road in Falcon, Colorado as the Sergeant Major James Gregory Ryan Sarter Memorial Highway. Whereas James Gregory Ryan Sarter was born on September 23, 1978, and whereas Ryan Sarter was raised in Teague, Texas, and met his wife, Deanna, in College Station, Texas, and together they made their home in Falcon, Colorado, with their 3 children, Strider, Grace, and Garrett. And whereas Sergeant Major Sarter enlisted in the United States Army in 2001 and was soon deployed as an infantryman in the 3rd Infantry Division to help lead the invasion of Iraq in 2002. And whereas, upon returning from his first deployment in Iraq, Sergeant Major Sarter was selected for the Special Forces Qualification Course and earned his Green Beret. And whereas, Sergeant Major Sarter served the next 14 years as the Special Forces Green Beret and was deployed more than a dozen times to Germany, Israel, and Africa, and including combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. And whereas, due to the breadth of his talent, skills, and dedication to service, Sergeant Major Sarter earned many awards and decorations, including the Bronze Star Medal with 3 oak clusters, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Joint Service Commendation Medal, the Army Commendation Medal with 3 oak clusters, the Army Achievement Medal, the Presidential Unit Citation Award, the Joint Meritorious Unit Award, the Valorous Unit Award with 2 oak leaf clusters, the Meritorious Unit Citation with 1 oak leaf cluster, and the National Defense Service Medal. And whereas Sergeant Major Sarter also earned the Special Forces Tab, the Ranger Tab, the Combat Infantryman Badge, the Senior Parachutist Badge, the Special Operations Diver Badge, and the Dive Supervisor Badge. And whereas on February 7th, 2019, Sergeant Major Sarter said goodbye to his family and departed for what would become his final deployment to serve as Company Sergeant Major for Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion of 10th Special Forces Group. And whereas Sergeant Major Sartor was always a muddy boots leader and accordingly went out on at least one mission with each of his teams. And whereas on July 13th, 2019, Sergeant Major Sartor went out with his final team located in Faryab Province in Afghanistan and came under enemy fire, sustaining injuries from small arms fires, and sadly died from those injuries. And whereas Sergeant Major Sartor was posthumously awarded the Purple Heart, the Legion of Merit, and the Bronze Star Medal. And whereas Sergeant Major Sartor served his country well and lived a life that honored God with dignity and integrity, and is still known as a man that even other Green Berets look up to. And whereas it is only fitting that Sergeant Major Sartor's bravery and love of country and his fellow man be recognized so that we may never forget his sacrifice to our great nation. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 72nd General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate, concurring herein, that the portion of United States Highway 24 from the intersection of Garrett Road to the intersection of Elbert Road in Falcon, Colorado, be designated as the Sergeant Major James Gregory Ryan Sartor Memorial Highway. That the Colorado Department of Transportation may accept and expend gifts, grants, and donations for the purposes of the initial placement of signs to mark United States Highway 24 from the intersection of Garrett Road to the intersection of Elbert Road in Falcon, Colorado as the Sergeant Major James Gregory Ryan Sartor Memorial Highway. That the Colorado Department of Transportation may explore a cooperative agreement with the Board of County Commissioners for El Paso County for the maintenance of the signs marking the Sergeant Major James Gregory Ryan Sartor Memorial Highway. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to Deanna Sartor and the Board of County Commissioners for El Paso County.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, please be seated. I will be brief. Last Friday, we celebrated Military Appreciation. We so do appreciate the military. This particular resolution brings home and makes personal that appreciation. Sergeant Major Ryan Gregory Sartor became a member of the El Paso County community when he came to Fort Carson. He is in fact a hero, and we honor him for the service he's provided to us. And the Senate concurring herein honors him by naming a section of a state highway down in the neighborhood where he lived in his memory. Last Friday, his widow Dee and his 3 children, Garrett, Grace, and Strider, received on your behalf flags that were flown over this building in honor of their father. This resolution is an acknowledgement of a hero that walked among us, and we remember today. Colleagues, I appreciate your attention to this. I appreciate the sensitivity with which you approached the entire military appreciation conversation last week, and I urge you to support this resolution, which I know you will, honoring Sergeant Major James Gregory Ryan Sartor and a small section of a highway in our community which will honor him in perpetuity. Thank you, colleagues.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of HJR 1003. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, HJR 1003 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senator Lundin.
Without objection, Mr. President, I would urge that the current roll call be included as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors as requested. Consideration of governor's appointments, consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the Colorado Wildlife Habitat Stamp Committee for terms expiring December 31st, 2022, Thomas Dwayne Brossi of Durango, Colorado, sports person reappointed Ashley Johnson Russ of Denver, Colorado, a representative of national and regionally recognized conservation organization whose mission is focused on non-game wildlife and whose membership is composed primarily of non-game wildlife users appointed. For terms expiring December 31st, 2023, Brett Ackerman of Colorado Springs, Colorado, serves as an ex officio member representing the Division of Wildlife, appointed Priya Nanjapa of Lakewood, Colorado, to serve as a representative of nationally and regionally recognized conservation organizations whose members are focused on non-game wildlife and whose membership is composed primarily of non-game wildlife, appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, which includes members of the Colorado Wildlife Habitat Stamp Committee.
Is there any discussion? The motion is for the confirmation of all the governor's appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 33 aye votes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 2 excused, all of the appointments on the consent calendar are confirmed. Announcements. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I just want to let folks know that today's today's Finance Committee meeting will be meeting in 271 in the Old State Library as opposed to our normal meeting place. I'll see y'all at 2 o'clock.
Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to tell the local government committee that we will be meeting at 2 o'clock today. We will have a confirmation for a member of the Energy Impact Advisory Committee, as well as Senate Bill 104 and Senate Bill 58. So 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Senator Woodward.
Mr. President, I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we recognized the Colorado State University Veterans Organization. On January 5th, the CSU Student Veterans Organization was selected as the chapter of the year by Student Veterans of America, representing well over 1,500 chapters from around the country. Members of the CSU Veteran Organization fill a number of leadership roles across the campus, including the student government, part of CSU's President's Multicultural Advisory Committee, and members of varsity athletics and club athletics. Student veterans also help bridge the gap and reduce misunderstandings about student veterans and the veterans in general with traditional age students. At CSU, veterans never stop serving. They routinely volunteer at the mobile food pantry, help fight food insecurity. They also volunteer in the community and have helped an elderly veteran with a 12-ton rock project. Furthermore, every year, CSU Student Veterans Organization hosts a national roll call on Veterans Day, reading out the names of every fallen service member since 9/11. CSU student veterans host an annual interactive team obstacle course named Operation Bear Hug, educating students and community members on suicide awareness. On behalf of the Colorado Senate, I would like to present this plaque to the CSU Student Veterans Organization. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Woodward. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I have two quick announcements. Just one more reminder. Tonight is the Global Medical Response Legislative Reception, and that's from 5 to 7 at the University Club. And then also this morning, some of you might have had a chance, even though I know we were all later getting here, but the CHASA, Colorado High School Activities Association, was greeting us outside the old Supreme Court chambers. And they have a card for each one of us that has your name on it. And that card will admit you to the basketball playoffs and championships for high school basketball for Colorado. So encourage you to go pick one up, say hello to CHASA, and go cheer for your favorite team. Thank you.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Judiciary Committee is scheduled to meet upon adjournment. We are not going to meet upon adjournment in Judiciary Committee today. So the bill that is up, Senate Bill 116, sponsored by my colleague from Loveland, will present that bill on Wednesday. Thank you.
Senator Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to request another moment of privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. Today I'd like to welcome to the Senate floor Miss Loveland Valentine. I know it's your favorite day of the year. Miss Ashley Ann Arthur, a senior from Mountain View High School, as well as her parents Chad and Shannon Arthur and grandmother Dixie Daly, have joined us today. Since 1962, Loveland has been selecting a Miss Loveland Valentine. The title of Miss Loveland Valentine has been held with honor and pride as this young woman spends the next year representing the community of Loveland. The selected high school senior, who becomes Miss Loveland Valentine, also receives scholarship funds toward her college education awarded from a trust established by the founders of the Loveland Valentine program, Ted and Mabel Thompson. For more than 52 years, Miss Loveland Valentine has met the governor, presenting him with a special gift from Loveland and an official Loveland Valentine. But more importantly, she has made a formal presentation to this body for over 50 years. On behalf of the Colorado Senate, I would like to congratulate Ashley on being awarded Miss Loveland Valentine. And if you could please give a round of applause not only to Miss Loveland Valentine, but also the CSU Student Veterans Association that we spoke of earlier. Thank you, Mr. President.
Having no further announcements, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, just a reminder about the announcement I made yesterday. Amendments for the supplemental bills will be, the deadline for submitting amendments is 4 o'clock today. Please submit those to JBC staff before the deadline. Staff will prepare the amendments and deliver copies to you as well as the front desk by tomorrow at 9 a.m. for us to have for the bills when they're on seconds tomorrow. These will not be produced in packets as a collection like we do during the long bill, but instead will be introduced and offered like any normal amendment would be on the floor. So a little different from the long bill, but the same as other normal bills. If you have amendments to the related bills that are not technically supplementals, but are just bills related to the supplementals, those amendment requests can be given straight to the OLS drafters. You don't have to go through JBC staff for those because that's more of a statutory amendment. Let us know if you have any questions in the meantime. For now, Mr. President, I move the Senate recess until 1 p.m. today.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will stand in recess until 1300 hours today.